Cuphead is a game full of passion, phenomenal game design, and is home to one of the most beautiful art styles a game has ever seen. Each animation is drawn by hand, and every moment handcrafted. But Cuphead is also a game that makes you scream, weep, and throw your controller at the wall. Cuphead is beautifully crafted in every way, and every point of the game works together seamlessly. The gameplay, level design, art, music, and the soul-crushing yet addictive challenge. All of it creates a one-of-a-kind experience that still sticks out after 8 years of new and next-gen releases. At its core, Cuphead is a run-and-gun shooter, but calling it that is like calling the ocean a puddle. It's a game built most entirely around boss fights, and it was originally intended to be just that, boss fights. But then people saw it and asked for more. So the developers sprinkled in a few run-and-gun platforming levels for good measure, and gave us a Mario-like hub world with secrets and all sorts of NPCs to meet. Each fight is unique and different, and has an array of different phases that are either set or randomized. Every boss is unique and hand-animated, with music and settings of their own. But your only mission as Cuphead or Mugman is to collect their souls and feed them to the devil, who is apparently into poker. But these bosses all have unique attacks that feed into the 30s animated theme, with rings of smoke, actual words, and all sorts of random objects to dodge. The mechanics are deceptively simple: shoot, jump, dash, and parry. That's it. But mastering these moves is where the real challenge lies. Precision is king. You don't just dodge attacks, you thread the needle through waves of chaos and attempt to return fire with the unique forms of shot you purchase from the pork chop. And let's talk about the parry system. Parrying isn't just encouraged, it's practically required if you want to excel. Any pink object in the game can be slapped like it owes you money, rewarding you with extra super meter. But the timing itself isn't the issue. Sometimes the stuff you parry is flying or running away or trying to shoot at you, and if you miss, you are going to take damage. The wide array of crazily animated attacks makes it even harder, as clouds of smoke and random lasers cover the screen and make it very, very difficult to decipher. But you are very well equipped from the beginning, and the game gives you plenty of leeway. And for those who want to test themselves, you can retry every boss eternally and try to get that perfect S rating, where you need to parry, super, and dodge your way in perfect fashion. But contrary to every 2018 journalist, this game is completely fair. Nearly every mistake you make is your own, and there is nowhere else to run besides forward. No puzzles to decipher besides movesets, and very few bosses that take extra effort to reach. Cuphead may be linear, but it does what it needs to do. The screen is like a symphony of chaos and requires all the skill you need, from dashing and weaving to shooting. This game is not a grindfest, but a true and unadulterated challenge, just like fishing in Red Dead or Melania. The bosses in Cuphead don't just attack, though, they adapt. Sure, they do have set patterns, but these patterns shift between phases, meaning you're never truly comfortable. You learn one set of attacks, and then bam, new phase, new horrors. But if you die, there is no guarantee you get the same combo of phases. But don't worry, the game's first island has bosses with little to no randomization, so you'll get to it at the perfect time for you. It's not traditional AI in the sense of learning from the player, but it feels reactive. Bosses don't just sit around waiting for you to figure them out, they escalate, mix up their moves, and they make sure you never are just coasting through unbothered. And unlike Souls games, there is no way to really cheese the ones without breaking the game, or at least not anymore. Take King Dice's mini-boss, for example. You might get a relatively easy fight, or you might get the monkey memory game from hell. It's the kind of randomness that doesn't feel cheap, but forces you to stay adaptable and always be ready for what comes next. Cuphead's boss fights are where the game shines, but let's not ignore the run and gun levels. These stages are the closest thing Cuphead has to traditional platforming, and while they aren't the game's highlights, they serve as a nice break from the boss rush, allowing you to fight dense hordes of smaller enemies and find coins within the levels to bring home the bag and go to the pig to get some new goods. Each level is crafted with the same attention to detail as the bosses. Enemy placements are precise, and hazards are designed to keep you on your toes. There is no filler here. Every inch of a level is designed to keep the challenge alive. But not only that, every running gun has a slightly different theme or mechanic that goes with it, like shifting from ceiling to floor, or scaling a tree trunk and fighting off spiky logs. That being said, some of the running gun levels feel a little weaker compared to the boss fights. They are great, but they don't quite reach the same level of brilliance. The boss fights have personality oozing out of every frame, while some platforming sections feel more like an obstacle course than a living world. And they really do sometimes feel like a blur, aside from some outliers that truly feel like diamonds in the rough. If you took classic Fleischer Studios cartoons, injected them with nightmare juice, and let them loose in a fever dream, you'd get Cuphead. Every frame is hand drawn, every animation meticulously crafted to match the vintage rubber hose aesthetic. The bosses aren't just enemies, they're characters. Whether it's a grim matchstick, the three-headed dragon that moves like it's straight out of a lost Disney short, or Bebby the clown who feels like I could see him on Chris Hansen any day now. Even the backgrounds are masterpieces of design. They look like they were painted on old animation cells, completed with the graininess of old cartoons. Studio MDHR didn't just replicate the 1930s style, they resurrected it from the dead and made it dance with a controller in its hand, and all without the blazing saddles aspects of the 1930s. The Cuphead soundtrack is the most beautiful jazziness since ODST, and reflects the same thing the art style does. I mean, the game even has its own barbershop quartet that is a mini side quest which allows you to listen to some very soothing music straight from a Resident Evil typewriter. Also, Die House, which is King Dice's theme, is absolutely the best theme in the entire game. This isn't just background music, it's integrated into the experience. The rhythms match the intensity of each fight, and the compositions shift dramatically as battle progresses. It's a perfect fusion of audio and gameplay that very few games that aren't based around rhythms like Hi-Fi Rush or Everhood can even come close to beating. Alright, let's talk about the difficulty, which according to Kotaku, this game is so unbelievably hard that entering the tutorial is a decision which can end your entire run before you ever encounter a boss or character. But here's the thing, it's always fair. Every death is your fault. You missed a parry, you got greedy with your attacks. You didn't respect the boss's pattern. Cuphead punishes mistakes, but it never cheats you. That's what makes it so satisfying to improve. There is no artificial difficulty here. No bloated health bars, no randomness that can end your run, because you forgot that your R2 only does 601 damage and not 610. And best of all, there's no Rykards or Dragon God gimmick fights. Just pure and phenomenal refined challenge. Despite all my praise, Cuphead does have a few rough edges. First of all, some of the running gun levels feel like an afterthought. The boss fights are the real attraction, and while the platforming stages are very well made, they lack the same punch that nearly every boss fight has, and I feel it was probably a product of small studio size and priorities. Co-op can be more chaotic than helpful. Having a second player sounds great until you realize it doubles the mayhem, doubles the health, and doubles the difficulty. Good luck tracking your Cuphead slash Mugman in the middle of bullet hell, and the fact that it makes the boss harder just makes it a little miserable, even though it can be fun if you have a friend to play with. And no, the game's not too hard, and don't try to say that because it does have an easy mode. But, to be fair, if you play on the easy mode, you cannot beat the game. And it's just hard because it is. Nobody asks why original Super Mario was so hard, it's just a part of the game. At the end of the day, Cuphead is a labor of love that punches you in the teeth and makes you love it for doing so. The stunning, hand-drawn art, incredible music, and masterful gameplay combine to create one of the most unique and unforgettable experiences in modern gaming. It's brutal, it's beautiful, and it's one of the most rewarding games you'll ever play, if you can survive it. I give Cuphead 12 mugs out of 3 very large dollops of blue goop. Alright, bye-bye.